Hello, and welcome to the JCC of Metro Detroit's 22nd annual Lenore Marwell Detroit Jewish Film Festival. My name is Jamie Loeb, and I'm the Senior Director of Cultural Arts at the JCC of Metro Detroit. Today's film discussion and all of our live film discussions are presented in partnership with the Detroit Institute of Art's Detroit Film Theater. I want to thank them for their support and help in making these live events a reality. One of the ways the Detroit Film Theater has been involved in the film festival is through their director, Elliot Wilhelm. He's one of the deans of the Detroit film scene and a part-time faculty member at Wayne State University. He'll be the moderator for tonight's event and most of our film discussions. We are so glad to have him on the team as our film expert in residence. So this is our very first virtual film festival. We are so happy to be able to connect with all of you from the comfort of your own homes. The festival runs October 4th through the 30th, and all of our films, except for one special event film, are available to watch on demand throughout that entire time. And of course, we have an extensive series of free live film discussions here on YouTube throughout the month. You can find all of our lineup. You can buy tickets, you can get a festival pass, you can check out all the films here at our website, culturalarts.jcc.org/filmfest. While you're here on our YouTube channel, be sure to like this video, subscribe, and hit the little reminder bell so that you always know when we have an exciting virtual event happening. We do want to hear your comments, your questions, your ideas today. So you can put a comment in the comment box below or text your comments to the number on your screen right there, 248-973-7286. We definitely want to hear from you. Our guests have a wonderful discussion prepared for you, but of course they will get to as many of your questions as they can. So the film we're discussing today is called Douze, and it's an Israeli comedy that takes place in France, Israel, and all over. It centers on a gay Muslim French singer and his quest to compete in a fictionalized version of the Eurovision Song Contest in Tel Aviv. It is clever, poignant, hilarious, sweet. It's really just a wonderful movie. We are thrilled to have with us today the executive producer and one of the creators, Adar Shafran. Adar has been a successful filmmaker and producer for many years. Some of his films include Maktub, which we hosted a Netflix watch party for early this summer, The 90-Minute War, Forgiveness, all highly recommended. So please join me in welcoming our host, Elliot Wilhelm, and our guest, Adar Shafran.
Hello.
Hello, good to see you, Adar.
Hey, nice to see you too.
Now, let me ask you a question before we get started on Douze Points. You have been in the business, so to speak, of producing and creating films for a while now. You've got something like 15 movies over the last decade. It seems like. How did you begin making films, and why did you begin making films? I like to meet people from everywhere who are as excited about making movies as I am about watching them.
So it started for me. Actually, I had a music band, a rock band that I was playing and writing the songs, and we've been together for 8 years in Israel. The band called La Guardia, if you want to look it on YouTube. Anyway, so we were doing our music videos alone, and I produced it. And the director that I worked with on our music videos told me, listen, you're doing a great job in producing it. Why don't you come and work for me or with me for another project, not only for your music videos? And this is how I started. And I started from music videos. I did in Israel, 150 music videos for all the greatest singers, songwriters in Israel. And then I started to do commercials. It was almost 20 years ago. And then after several years of doing commercials, I started, one guy came to me and said he has a great idea for a movie, and we started to work on it, and I produced my first movie. And from then it was, like like a roll. I rolled and from another movie to another movie, and I really love it, and I do it with a lot of passion. And I'm not the producer that sits on his office. I'm in the field. I'm doing everything. I'm sitting next to the director together, and I really love it.
And speaking of music videos, which you can tell you have a background in from some aspects of this movie, one of the things that plays a big role in the film is based on the Eurovision contest. A lot of Americans, I think, aren't familiar with Eurovision, and certainly not with its importance and its popularity and what a big deal it is.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that and how it works its way into the plot of Douze Points?
Yes, sure. So the Eurovision is really in Europe. It's a really great. It's the biggest music contest, and everybody watch it. Since I was a child, it was like when you have the Eurovision, you see it with all your family, even though it's not like a great songs always. It's not the best. It has its own taste, but the competition and
Right.
yeah, and every time the Israelis, of course, we sit on our living room, and the Israeli most of the time are not winning, and we said, yeah, it's the people don't like the Jews, people don't like Israel. And sometimes we won. Actually, we won the Eurovision, I think 4 or 5 times. And whoever wins the Eurovision the next year, it's going to be held in the country that won. So it's a really big thing, and in our film was based on the Eurovision, because just actually a little bit less than a year before we started to think about this idea, Neta Barzilai, who won the Eurovision in Lisbon, she brought the Eurovision to Israel, and that's how we came with this idea that we said, listen, the Eurovision is coming to Israel. I mean, someone will want to blow it, right? Let's do a movie about it.
Blow it up.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself is kind of startling, because things, like terrorism, ISIS, anti-Semitism in general, these are generally not things that you see as the subject of comedies, and particularly raucous comedies and kind of broad comedies that have a broad appeal for audiences that will enjoy a traditional comedy. Did you get any kind of blowback, so to speak, when you decided to do this? And it was originally a project for television, correct? It was a miniseries.
It was a miniseries of 3 episodes for Israel. It was broadcast as a miniseries. Yes, there's a great story that started when actually when we were shooting this project. We started this project. We had like 10 months to get the money, to get the story, actually to write it, to get everybody involved. And I don't know if people knows it, but 10 months, it's really short time. Usually for a movie or a TV miniseries, it takes like 3-4 years to get the money to do it, to write it. It usually takes a lot more. And it was like really, we were passionate about to succeed of doing it really before the Eurovision, because the trick of this project was there is the Eurovision is there is a semi-final and a final, and it's in the same week. And we were told that if we would succeed to do it at the same week, to air this project before the Eurovision, it will be great. And this is how we acted, and we got the money, and we were working like hell. And then actually we shot in Tel Aviv and in Paris. And when we were shooting in Paris, I made a little short teaser to show it to some producer in France and to get their attention, and somehow it rolled into the wrong hands. I don't know how, and someone from the French delegation saw this teaser, and they called the Israeli government and the Israeli delegation of the Eurovision, and they told them, listen, if this project will air before the Eurovision, we are not coming. And if you see, if you write on Google right now, you write France boycott Israel Eurovision, you'll see tons of articles, and it was all over the news. At the beginning, I was really happy because I thought, wow, that's a great thing. It's PR, free PR, but
all publicity is good publicity.
Yeah, it wasn't. It actually, one of the most interesting thing about it is that when we were in France, we were told that it was like maybe 5 or 6 months before the Eurovision, and this is when the countries pick their the ones that will represent them, right? And then we understood, our hero called TJ in the movie, and he's a Muslim gay guy, right? Tariq, yeah. And then we discovered that the real French singer that is going to represent France is a Muslim gay guy, and actually he looks pretty close to our star. I mean, it was hilarious. I was really happy about it, but then came all the thing that postponed our airing a little bit, and it was really strange. I mean, the who would have thought?
I know it tests your sense of which came first, what was influenced by what. But
yeah,
the series was a hit, I take it.
Yeah,
when it was finally. Yeah. And what inspired you to turn it into a feature film?
Actually, we made it we thought about it at the beginning. I mean, in the editing room, we edited at 3 episodes, and immediately we did also a feature film, because I knew that, listen, it's a story for feature film. I mean, it's a story that the minutes that you are telling this story, it's about 100 minutes. I mean, we did it as a mini series in Israel because they really wanted it to air it in the channel that was broadcasting the Eurovision. But it's a movie. I mean, and so we did it from the beginning, and it was really great success. We were in Palm Spring film festivals, and it's doing really great in festivals all around the world.
One of the sad parts for me, as for everybody else in this era, in terms of the pandemic and watching films the way we're watching them now, I saw your movie on this same laptop that I'm talking to you on now, and as I was watching it, since I exhibit movies for a living at the Detroit Institute of Arts, whenever I see a film, I think about what its audience response is going to be. And this one would play so well in a room filled with 1,000 people, all having a good time together and enjoying the film and the feelings that roll through the room. It doesn't mean it can't be enjoyed in the fashion that we live now. But thinking about that, could you talk a little bit about your own feelings about where movies and movie exhibition are now? What's going on in Israel? What's the movie going and theatrical scene like there pre-pandemic? And are theaters open at this point? And about production, all of the things that it's impacting somewhat differently everywhere in the world.
Yeah, it's really for me, it's really devastating, because I'm doing also TV series and feature films, and now people come to me in the last 6 months, people come to me with idea for a new film. I'm starting to think, listen, what do you want to do with it? I mean, it's not going to be, it's a TV film. It's going to be as a TV film, not a cinema, and which I really love. And this is what I really want to do in life, to produce or to make films for cinema. And actually, I'm doing, most of my films are comedies, comedies for people to enjoy it, not dramas. But I do some drama, but comedy is my specialty. I don't know how it came like this. I'm not a that funny guy, but this is how it happened. And right now, listen, I have a new film that's called Greener Pastures. It's about an old guy that they put him into a nursing home, and his family put him into a nursing home, and all he wants is to buy his old home back. So he's starting dealing with cannabis, medical cannabis that he's getting. So it's a comedy, of course, and it's now on the Israeli Academy Awards. We are nominated for 12. How do you call it? 12 nominees.
Yeah.
Yes, and the Academy people saw it. Most of them saw it in a computer, and it's a comedy. And all the time I was thinking, like, it's when you see a comedy with crowd, it's completely different.
Yeah.
Someone is laughing and it's starting you, and you're starting to laugh also, and you enjoy the chemistry of the audience, even if you don't feel them. Even if you are really concentrated on the film, you feel it. So for me, if you see a drama, it's easier, but a comedy you have to see with people. And so the situation is really bad here in Israel. We don't have cinemas yet. It's closed since February, I think, since March, and it's not going to happen anytime soon, I think. I mean, the cinemas, we almost started to open them, like it was 2 months ago, when things started to look like it's going to be the end of it, but then it came back big time, and now we are in lockdown, and no cinemas, and I don't really, it looks like it's not going to happen. And I'm a really big friend with one of the cinema owners, the biggest cinemas in Israel, and he's like, he don't know what to do, actually.
The film theaters in Detroit have been closed during this entire time, but actually tomorrow, October 9th, many of them are reopening.
Wow,
with limited capacity. Yeah, but they'll be opening tomorrow. Not all of them. Ours at the museum, we're not quite ready. We have a big 1,000-seat theater. We have problems still to work out for the sake of safety, but it'll be very interesting to see what happens as people begin to go back into theaters. And the irony, as you were talking about the response to comedy in a theater, and that in a way the least harmed, I suppose, for viewing is an intense personal drama of some kind that you can be alone with. I've been watching a lot of films from the Toronto Film Festival online and the New York Film Festival online, and it's the comedies that suffer the most. And the irony is that that's what we need now. The world needs to be able to somehow lighten the mood. You, in this film, do something pretty daring, which is to take subject matter that you would not consider appropriate for comedy. And if you do it wrong, if you make a comedy with characters who are in ISIS, and you screw that up, it's a really risky proposition. And you have found a way, and your filmmakers and your actors who work with you, to bring it into a kind of a familiar comic genre and feeling, and make it about pretty much these two principal characters who were childhood friends and were destined to go in somewhat different directions because of a father who was very angry at the kid who became known as Russell later on, and they managed to find each other again. And there's a sweetness to it that is really charming. And what is the story in terms of being able to imagine how a comic film based on risky subject matter that's not traditionally funny, is going to work? Because it seems to me to be a very big gamble. You have to know what you're doing. You clearly have a feel for this, and you have a way of making sure that an audience is going to bond with these characters emotionally. Does that ever simply not work?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, I think one of the reasons for it to work, because you can see at the beginning that we are laughing at everybody.
Yep.
We're not laughing on, actually there was we're not laughing on the Muslims as the Muslims, or the Jews, or some other. We're laughing at the terrorists, but we are also laughing at the Mossad agents. I mean, they're not the smartest Mossad agents that we think that they are. I mean, so we're laughing at everybody except for the main two characters, that they are like, we try to tell their inner story, the inner thing that, that we all have. I mean, this guy is a terrorist, but he has his own wants and needs, and we try to show it. But I think the fact that we are laughing at everything, on the Israelis and the Arabs and the French and the terrorists and the gays. I mean, this I would say that this is the most gambling to laugh about gays. But gays, the gay community really loves this project. They really love this story, because we are not laughing at them. We're not saying something about them. We are laughing with them.
Right.
Yeah, it's like,
it's not
we're
derisive, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's almost everyday humor, and humor that's situational, but they're not being denigrated in a sense, even though they're with their families and with the other peripheral characters in the film and their situations, life is tough, but we're rooting for them all the time. What kind of comedies did you grow up on? What kind of comedies did you go to see that impacted you?
I grew up on a lot of things, like the Israeli comedies in the 70s and 80s. We call it, I don't know how to translate it. We call it here burekas movies, which it's like a cheap. It's actually the real thing about it is that it's movies about the let's say about the Moroccan and the Persian and the ones that came from Russia. I mean, it's all the things combined together in Israel that made a lot of comedies about the difference of
culture clash.
Cultural clash. So this was like the movies in Israel, but I grew up mostly on American films, all the usual. I mean, everything, not only comedies, actually everything. We see here all the US movies, mostly a lot more than European movies, let's say. And so I don't know, I love all kinds of things. It's like in music, I love really a lot of music, all kinds of musics.
Were American movies very popular in Israel as you were growing up?
Yes. All the American movies, the American culture is in Israel really strong. We're trying to be Americans, but we are not. So it's we feel it. So yeah, the American movies are really big thing here.
Yeah, it seems to be the one thing we still really export well. And right now, with nobody making movies, I don't know what's going to happen there. What do you find in terms of your schedule and hopes for actual production? How are the conditions now impacting the making of films? We know about not being able to see them in theaters, but one of my worries is that when theaters do reopen, what is there to see?
Yeah. Actually, well, I'm trying in my work, in my environment, I'm trying to work as usual, as much as I can. I mean, I told you before, when someone comes to me with an idea, so at the beginning I'm thinking, well, listen, I don't know what can you do with it, because look at the situation. I mean, you're thinking about movie idea. I mean, look at it. But then I catch myself and I'm saying, listen, things will change. I don't know how, I don't know what, but things will change for the good. And I'm working like there's no tomorrow. And I'm trying. I'm developing now in my development crew. I have like, I don't know, 5 or 6 feature films and 3 TV series, and I'm doing really, and I'm planning to shoot a new film in 6 months from now. So I'm trying to not to think about it, to forget it, because I know it will pass, or it will change the course of the films. I don't know, but the cinemas will come back, and I believe, I don't know, in America, I don't know how it goes there, but I believe that in Israel, we work like, we 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 really miss the cultural thing, and I think that the minute that the cinemas will be open, people will run. This is
Well,
what
it'll
I
be
believe.
interesting to see what happens
Although,
here.
it looks like not a safe place, and I mean, maybe the old people will come a little bit later, but I believe people will rush.
Yeah, there's certainly a hunger for it, and people really do miss it. And I think once the safety factor is assured, then people will be very, very glad and anxious to get back to movies and restaurants and everything else. But movies, of course, are something that
We had
it's
we had.
one of
I'm
the
sorry.
rare communal things.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We had
No,
we
no, no.
had a we had a case study here in Israel, because, as I told you, there was really the pandemic was starting to go really down. We were in close down, really strong one, and then the pandemic around May, I think, or a little bit before, was really going down here in Israel. And then our prime minister told everybody, "Listen, we won. Go and have some fun." Yeah, right. And then at that time, there were concerts were coming back. The cinema wasn't coming back because they had to prepare everything, and it took
Right.
some time for them to open. It was like 3 days before they opened, they shut everything down all from the beginning. But the concerts were happening in several places, and people were like, you couldn't buy a ticket because it was so packed, because everybody wanted to go to concerts, and people were going like hell. So I believe that the minute they will open here something, people will run.
Got a question. It's not a question as such, but it's a comment about your casting. This is somebody who loved Shani Klein in the film. And could you talk a little bit about casting in general in this film, but also how you work in terms of casting a part? How crucial is it, and at what point in a production, this one for example, do you firm up the casting?
So in Israel, the way we do things, it's really different from America, because in the United States, I try to develop some projects in the United States, and the most important thing is the casting. I mean, you start, if you want to get money for something, you need to cast first. You need to have a great cast. You need to have a familiar cast that will sell the film, because without it, nobody will look at you. So you have a script, and then you go to cast. In Israel, it's not working like this. In this project, it was a little bit different. I will tell you in a minute. But in Israel, you are getting the money from most of the money for films, it's coming from the state. I mean, it's like you have a funds for Israeli movies, and then you get the money, and then you prepare everything, and then you start casting. Okay. So, but in this project, it was really, everything was happening really fast. So I picked the director. It's Danny Sirken. He's a great guy. He actually, it's funny because the director of this film is I don't know if you know it, but there is a really big TV series called Tehran. It's now on Apple. It was sold to Apple, and you can see it all over the world. And it's the same director, the director of Tehran. It's the director, and it's not a comedy. It's a drama, and action drama. He's a great guy. And the minute I told him, listen, I want to do it with you, he came and he said, listen, I have time. Let's do it. I picked the director. You can't imagine. It was like 7 months before shooting. So it's really close to the shooting. And then the minute we went together, we started casting. And the casting in this project was really interesting because we needed our two heroes, and they had to speak fluently French. I mean, it's not like you can, in Israel we do have some people that talk French, but it's not like very common. You need to find an actor that it's good for you, and it has to speak French. So we started casting here in Israel, and we found one guy, Russell, the guy who plays Russell, Zach. His name is Zach, and he was amazing, and he speaks French. He's a French guy, of course, but he's an Israeli guy, and we found it here. It was really crazy. And then we couldn't find any more, so we started casting in France, in Paris, and we got options from there, and we went there to see the actors, and it was really a great process, fast but great. And the guy that we casted for TJ, Tarek, he is a great guy. He also is a Muslim from Morocco, actually, and he's gay also. Our main actor is a gay Muslim guy. He plays a gay Muslim guy, and the main Eurovision, and the real Eurovision guy is a gay Muslim guy. So it's
authenticity all the way.
Yeah, and it was. I asked this guy in the beginning. I mean, you are going to play, because sometimes people don't want to act what they are in the reality. I mean, and it's terrorists and Muslims and gays. It's not like his own story is really interesting also. Maybe I need to do a movie about him also.
So what is the funding situation like in Israel? Is there help from government? Is it all private production? Are there funds for cultural purposes? Do film festivals help? Every country's got some different plans going on and abilities. What's the situation like there?
So in Israel, we have actually two big Israel minister funds that you can get money from there. Private investors are not so much to find, except one or two. Really, it's not in Israel, it's not a money machine. I mean, it's right. Like in the States, it's even if I did my previous, not previous, but in 2017 I did a film called Maktub, and it was like the most successful film in Israel in the last 33 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And we made some money out of it, but it's not like, I'm a rich guy now. So, right. So it's, but we have funds, and from are you asking if we have money from the government from the pandemic, or?
No. For film production, take the pandemic out and just,
take it out.
Yeah,
leave it out.
I'd like to take it out. But let's talk about the 10 or 20 years prior to that. One of the reasons I mentioned that, I've seen some extraordinary Israeli movies, particularly in the last 10 to 20 years. And it's always exciting at film festivals that I go to when there is a new Israeli film, and it usually turns out to be well worth seeing. And that wasn't always the case in the 1960s and 70s, at least as I recall. But the country as a whole, in terms of film production, has really stepped up their game. And is there an international market for Israeli film? I know to some degree in the United States, and there are obviously countries that won't play at all. But where does the revenue come from?
Well, it really depends. It divided into, as I see it, it's divided into two. First of all, you have the art house films that goes to festivals all around the world, and these are the most successful Israeli films usually.
Right.
They go to festivals, they go to the Jewish communities, and it's a big audience, especially in the United States. And so there is, and the government in Israel, the funds were investing until like 8 to 10 years ago. They were investing all in festival, like art house festival films. Now, in the recent years, and this is where I come to the picture, the Israelis are doing like the funds wants to do films for the audience, because art house films are not for, it's for not for everybody. It's a special, not special, but it's one way of the crowd. Most of the crowd, don't go to festivals, and they want to see films. I don't know how to call it, but actually the Jewish film festivals are really open to it, and they are, and I see, I don't know how to call it. I do films that I want the people to see it and to enjoy it and to laugh about it and to have a, it's a different kind of art as I see it. The art house and the popular films, let's call it. So in the recent years, the Israelis films started to look to be more popular, but still, it's. What was the question? Sorry.
It's okay. I really just wanted to know about where most of the ticket revenue from Israeli films comes from. In other words, are there countries that are particularly open to showing Israeli films regularly? Films like yours, would it play in theaters, in regular theaters, other than in Israel?
Yeah, it happens, of course, and we also in festivals, but also in open cinemas. But it's a Hebrew. If it's in Hebrew, it's a Hebrew film. It's a language that not everybody feels comfortable with. I mean, an American, it has to be something different, because I did a film called in the States. It's called something different. It's in Israel. It's Through the Wall. It's by Rama Burstein. She's a ultra Orthodox woman director, which is really rare here in Israel, all over the world, and it was really successful in the States, in the cinemas. They took it. I forgot that I have a blackout in the name of the distributor that took it, but we did. We were working with Sonic Classics sometimes.
Yeah. So Tom and Michael are very open to films that are great. The people at Sony Pictures Classics.
So people are seeing some Israel are open to Israeli films, but it's in small amount because it's a Hebrew. It has to be different. So I started to talk about Rama Burstein. Her films are different. You can't see a film like that anywhere in the world. So it's unique, and then people will see. Yeah, I want to see it, and it's
an issue with foreign language films in the United States in general. There are more opportunities now for seeing them, I suppose, because of streaming services like Netflix and Amazon. But it still is off-putting to a lot of people to have a film that's subtitled, and if you dub it into English, it's even worse because the film doesn't work that way. But it's an old age, long time issue. But occasionally, films break through.
Yeah.
So yeah. Jamie, do you have questions that are coming in?
Actually, not that many, believe it or not. I think people are quietly eating their lunch as they watch us. I do just want to mention, in case it's not abundantly obvious, Adar is in Israel, so we're very glad he could join us in what is the evening for him and lunchtime for us.
Yeah, and thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
Yeah, I'm ready to be here. Call me anytime. Call me anytime there.
Our next festival should be in May, and probably we'll be showing more of your films. So hopefully we'll have you back. So I want to say thank you to our host and our guest. There we go. You can see all of us a little better now. Thank you to all of you out there in TV land watching. We hope you'll join us for our next film discussion, which is on Tuesday, October 13th. Also at 12 Eastern, because we will have another filmmaker with us from Israel, and this time it'll be we'll be talking about the comedy Mossad. We're all about comedies this year. We need the comedies. So
Mossad, they're hilarious,
It's yes, almost as hilarious as Douze Points, or maybe Douze Points is almost as hilarious as Mossad. I think you'll have to watch both to find out.
Yeah, it's different kind
Very
of comedy.
different.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, it's I often describe it as Naked Gun, except about the Mossad. So I hope you all
without the naked and without the gun.
There are guns.
There are guns, right?
Anyways, I hope you'll all join us for that discussion. Thank you again to Adar, Shafran, and of course Elliot Wilhelm, our host. And
Thank you, Elliot.
have a great day,
Great
everyone.
to meet you, Adar. Stay well.
You too. Thank